Aaron Shack politics here, and today we have got a doozy for you because President-elect Donald Trump has announced his picks for his next cabinet and key administration posts for his new administration. A couple of the notable ones would be that Susie Wiles has been nominated for White House Chief of Staff, Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, Fox News host Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense, the disgraced Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrat turned whatever she is now, some sort of adversarial, potentially to the United States political figure, has been nominated for Director of National Intelligence. Mike Huckabee, a Christian Zionist, has been, and pro-settler maniac, has been signed to be ambassador to Israel. And then, of course, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, in hilarious fashion, have been assigned to what is called a Department of Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE for short. And I think Elon is just rolling at that joke. So, what is this really? Let's start with this Department of Government Efficiency. They've been quite adamant that there are some government departments, like say the FDA or something, is not monitoring the Fruit Loops close enough, that there are too many chemical food colorings in a lot of our food, and a lot of that is unhealthy and leads to cancer. Okay, that's fair. I can agree with a lot of that stuff. RFK doesn't sound super crazy at first. But should we scrap the whole FDA in order to fix that issue? That's not really the nuanced way to go about it. You need to make sure that the inspections are being done, that, unnecessary chemicals and unhealthy things that are being added into our food, we need to examine that, and we need to make decisions about whether that should be there at all, because, if you go to the UK and you get Fruit Loops, there's significantly less ingredients, less chemicals, less things that can cause you trouble in terms of health. So, government efficiency, what is it all about? Well, it turns out that it's actually not a Department of Government Efficiency, because if it were to be a new department, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy would have to actually submit tax documents. They would have to unveil their financial spendings, reports, all sorts of stuff. They would have to be transparent, and that is not something that actually pretty much anyone Trump-oriented or Trump himself are interested in doing. So, this has actually been downgraded, in essence, to a government commission tasked with slashing federal inefficiencies, which will be led by a tech billionaire, Elon Musk. But it's actually more modest. Trump has said that these two, Musk and Ramaswamy, will co-chair a temporary outside advisory group with a corny acronym and limited White House functions. So whereas a department would have all these government assets and workforce and all this various things that you would be commanding over, the Department of Defense, something like that. It is tasked over the entire U.S. military and its might across the world. This would be an oversight of the entire government. You could be looking at financial reports, essentially being the accountant here, and ruling as to whether certain government programs or or not necessarily branches of government, but we would say that these various agencies, are they needed? Are they just there to make money? So, now that it's been downgraded to a commission and a temporary one at that, let's talk about it. It's going to be a 16-month advisory initiative. So we're not even getting a full 2 years into the Trump presidency, where they will potentially reevaluate whether they like having Musk and Ramaswamy around. And to me, it's really a slap in the face, because if you see who Trump had on stage when he was, sort of doing his victory speech, you saw that Ramaswamy wasn't on stage. He was down in the crowd in the front row, cheering with all the rest of Trump's fangirls. It really is a pacification position. It's, hey, you kiss the ring, you're clearly loyal to me, but you're not in the inner circle enough that I want to give you like a major position where you could potentially either oppose me, or if we disagree on something, I'm going to want to make you resign. Trump wants to make sure that the mistakes of his first presidency, which is the idea of having any sort of oversight or anyone that can overrule any of his decisions, to be a complete vision of the past. He wants people that are yes men, and that will not stop him when he wants to put crocodiles and snakes in the border and make a big moat and fill it with crocodiles and snakes, so that anyone that tries to pass over, or maybe people that have passed, we could just throw them into the moat or what have you. This dystopian stuff, these wacky ideas, injecting bleach into your veins, to clean out the virus or what have you during COVID. All of these crazy statements that he had made, and ideas and projections and stuff, where there were people in the government that could say, yeah, we can't do that, sir. That's illegal. That's wrong. It's morally wrong. It's, that's not how medicine works, Donald. You inject bleach, you kill yourself, is what happens when that happens. You don't want to be injecting strange chemicals into your body. That can cause problems. So what he wants is a bunch of yes men. And that's kind of the theme of this entire video. This in name only Department of Government Efficiency, it really is going to amount that it's just advising the Office of Management and Budget. And of course, the whole project winds down July 4th, 2026. Ironic that they chose that day, but just 16 months after Trump's inauguration. Now, none of this necessarily means that Trump won't succeed in wreaking havoc in all these bureaucratic establishments here. Musk has said that he can cut a lot of this government overspending by $2 trillion, which is pretty crazy. And Trump initially wanted to install Musk as a secretary of cost cutting, or something similarly grand. It's very unusual, very strange that they sort of talk in these ways about positions that don't really exist. And of course, Trump says that he would put him in the cabinet, but then he also says that he doesn't know how he could do that with all the things he's got going. Of course, Elon running Tesla and SpaceX and stuff like that, but actually him just more being the CEO type figure, and him being surrounded by great people that can do the things that end up getting done, albeit not always to the best. Moving forward, Trump's Secretary of Defense pick, Pete Hegseth. We're going to have a lot to talk about this guy, but apparently his choice has stunned the Pentagon and raised questions about the Fox News host's experience, and we're going to get into that as well. But what is being noticed immediately, not only by me, but literally everybody at the Pentagon, everybody in news media, is realizing this is a person who is inexperienced and untested on the global stage to take over the world's largest and most powerful military. You don't hire an accountant to fix your plumbing issues, okay? You don't hire a newscaster to run the military. Now, we'll get into his military service, but it is not enough to be in charge of this, and he wants to bring in sweeping changes to the military. He's opposed to what he calls woke programs that promote equity and inclusion. He's questioned the role of women in combat and advocated pardoning service members charged with war crimes, which is insane to me. Now, let's take a look at a video here. We have a couple things. And we're going to start with a lighthearted one here. But this is Pete Hegseth talking about how he doesn't wash his hands. I don't know. I'll let him plead his case.
As I told you, my 2019 resolution is to say things on air that I say off air. I don't think I've washed my hands for 10 years. Really, I don't really wash my hands ever.
Help me.
No, I inoculate myself. It's just not, germs are not a real thing. I can't see them, therefore they're not real.
So you're becoming immune to all of the
exactly,
bacteria.
I can't get sick.
My dad might take
As I told you, my 2019
he says I can't get sick, and she even argues that he's immune to the bacteria by exposing himself to the bacteria. Bacteria is not like snake's venom. You can't just like inject small doses to try to make yourself immune to all the venoms in the world. That's just not how that stuff works. But yeah, germs are not a real thing because I can't see them. I would argue you can't see the wind, but is that real? You can't see all sorts of things, but we know that they are real because bacteria can be seen under a microscope. Because you can't see them with the naked eye doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Another thing, his pick, Trump's pick for defense secretary, doesn't think women should be allowed to serve in combat roles in the military. And so let's take a look at him actually saying this, because it is rather crazy.
Just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. Our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable.
With the axe, who's going to win this battle?
And he just threw a hatchet. I can't believe the comical music. Yep, just went right over the target. Could have hit a civilian. Oh, well, there it is. There it is. Yeah, I bet that hurt. Lucky. He's lucky that didn't actually hit him in a vital way that would have caused death or severe injury. So, not great there. Now, let's take a look, because I know people are going to be racing to the comments to say, well, actually, Pete Hegseth has this military experience. Let's back up. Let's take a look here at what the current Secretary of Defense has in terms of experience. Okay? Lloyd James Austin III was sworn in as the 28th Secretary of Defense on January 22nd, 2021. Mr. Austin is the principal assistant to the President in all matters relating to the Department of Defense and serves on the National Security Council. Mr. Austin was born in Mobile, Alabama, and raised in Thomasville, Georgia. He graduated from the United States Military Academy with a Bachelor of Science degree and a commission in the infantry. He holds a Master of Arts degree in Counselor Education from Auburn University and a Master of Business Management from Webster University. He is a graduate of the Infantry Officer Basic and Advanced Courses, the Army Command and General Staff College, and the Army War College. His 41-year career, let's remember that, 41 years, in the Army included command at the corps, division, battalion, and brigade levels. Mr. Austin was awarded the Silver Star for his leadership of the Army's 3rd Infantry Division during the invasion of Iraq in 2003. 7 years later, he would assume the duties of Commanding General of the United States Forces, Iraq, overseeing all combat operations in the country. After a tour of the Army's Vice Chief of Staff, Mr. Austin concluded his uniformed service as the commander of the U.S. Central Command, responsible for all military operations in the Middle East and Afghanistan. In this assignment, he led U.S. and coalition efforts to battle ISIS in Iraq and Syria. He retired from the Army in April 2016. Since his retirement from military service, Mr. Austin served on the boards of directors for Raytheon Technologies, Nucor, and Tenet Healthcare. And you can once again dive in even deeper if you want. But a storied 40-year career, the Silver Star, commanding divisions of the military in an entire country, and then eventually leading to the point where you're leading all military operations in the Middle East, is a storied legacy. And regardless of whether you agree with this war or that war, should we have been there, should we have not been there, the man's service speaks for itself. He is a man of the military and of service, and he knows how to lead because he has experience doing so. So he was a wise choice. Now, if we look here at Pete Hegseth, a Fox News host, he has 20 years experience in the military. Now, that's less than half. But let's look at what he did in the military, okay? And we're not shaming people. We're not shaming people. But when it comes to choosing a proper person for Secretary of Defense, you don't choose a private. You don't choose lower officers, okay? He has 20 years experience in the military, having served in the Army National Guard as an infantry officer from 2002 to 2021, and leaving service as a major, according to military service records. He served 11-month combat tour in Iraq from September of 2006 to July of 2007, and an 8-month tour in Afghanistan that began in May 2011. He also worked as a guard at the U.S. military base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, from June 2004 to April 2005. He's been awarded 2 Bronze Stars for his combat service. So, once again, not degrading the accolades or the service or just the fact that he has served, right? I think all veterans, all people, it's courageous of them to serve. We should be thanking them for serving. But I think when we're choosing people for major positions, we should be picking generals to go into this place, into this position. We should not be picking majors. We shouldn't be picking privates, okay? We shouldn't be picking people whose only experience, for the most part, has been National Guard, or for the most part, small increments of tours in Afghanistan or Iraq, when you could literally pick the guy who was leading those operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. You could pick. There are plenty of generals to go around. If you don't like Lloyd Austin, or if Lloyd Austin wants to retire, there are plenty of generals. But what Trump wants here is someone who is going to bow down and say yes, sir, to every suggestion, every question. If Trump wants to start a war, he needs someone to be like, that's a great idea, sir. I love everything you say. So picking a Fox News host and a yes man who will just absolutely bow down to anything he says and is loyal. And that's the running theme here. It's not about credentials. It's not about who's fit for the job. It's about who has been loyal to me, or who was disloyal to me, but then realized I cut the checks around here. And if you want to be in politics, you got to kiss the ring. If you want to be part of the Republican Party, you have to bow to me. So in some ways, he probably enjoys that he dominates the very people that once opposed him in his own party. So, Hegseth, if confirmed by the Senate, which that still has to happen, but you do have a Republican-led Senate at this point. It would lead to 1.3 million active duty troops in uniform and more than 750,000 civilians. He would be holding contentious meetings with U.S. allies and developing strike operations against the Islamic State and Iranian proxies. And while Hegseth does have some military experience, he has never run an organization larger than a small non-profit. So some are saying that, would he have the experience? Would you trust him to run a Walmart? So then why would you trust him to run the entire Department of Defense? Absolutely insane. Now, on to the next pick. Trump has picked Mike Huckabee to serve as U.S. ambassador to Israel. Now, what makes this so crazy is that Trump's selection, Mike Huckabee, has said basically there's no such thing as, and I need to be careful about saying this because people will get really upset. There's really no such thing as a Palestinian, Huckabee said at a 2008 campaign stop in Massachusetts while speaking to two Orthodox Jewish men. There's not. He's been a supporter of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, including laying a cornerstone for a new neighborhood in one of the largest settlements just east of Jerusalem in 2017. And so, because he thinks Israel has a title deed to Judea and Samaria, using biblical terms for the West Bank here, there are certain words I refuse to use. There's no such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria. This man's talking crazy words out of the Bible, which I'm a Christian, but like referring to modern day areas that don't belong, it just speaks to a level of insanity. There's no such thing as a settlement. There are communities, there are neighborhoods, there are cities. There's no such thing as an occupation. Well, I think we can easily refute all of these things because the United Nations has even stepped in and said that these settlements are illegal. And what are settlements? It's when you literally just move into someone's house. That's what it is. There's Palestinians living in the West Bank. They own these homes. They live in these homes. And what happens is these Israelis, these Zionists, will move in. They'll just come in the house. They'll beat you up. They'll kill you. They'll do whatever. They'll bulldoze your house, or they'll build on top of the house, or they'll build around your property. They'll build settlements all around so that you are overwhelmed and you are not welcome in the community and you can't escape and you're surrounded. And they will come and terrorize you. If you have an olive tree farm, they will come there. They'll burn your olive trees. They'll do whatever they can to sabotage both you and your property until you either leave or they beat you to death or you die or the IDF comes over and arrests you on trumped up charges. So this has all been declared illegal by the United Nations. Now, Mike Huckabee he's kind of using it as, he's trying to say they're communities and neighborhoods and cities, but we know exactly what they're classified as. Now, Gaza has been occupied. It is an occupation because Israel controls the water, it controls the power, it controls the food, it controls the borders. There's a giant wall around Gaza, and that's why they call it an open-air prison, but we don't use the term open-air prison because that would imply that the people there are guilty of something, of some sort of crime, and that they are prisoners, and that it is right to keep them in there. But they are just people. Granted, there are some people in there that are freedom fighters or terrorists or whatever you want to call Hamas. But I do see that there is an element of people that long to be free, and there are freedom fighters there. And as everyone has a right to, we all have a right to be a freedom fighter. The United States was built on freedom fighters. If we didn't stand up to opposition of the British government, we would just all be British and sipping tea right now. Which, to each their own. So we can prove categorically that Mike Huckabee here is absolutely delusional in every sense of the word. So he would obviously be fighting to expand settlements, which is in multiple ways very wrong. But yeah, it's also important to note that he has been a longtime ally of settlers, and he has a very close relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu. He has repeatedly expressed support for Jewish settlers, has backed the idea of Israel annexing parts of the occupied West Bank. In 2015, Huckabee also said that Israel has a stronger historical connection to the West Bank than the U.S. has to Manhattan. I think these weird we keep hearing this where it's there's these weird comparisons of where Joe Biden says if there wasn't an Israel, I would make one. There's just these very strange anti-American statements that people keep making, and they mention how much they love Israel and that Israel is so much better almost than America, and it's just such a weird comparison to make, saying that Israel has a stronger connection to the West Bank than the U.S. has to Manhattan. It's just really weird, because Manhattan is a part of the U.S. The West Bank is a part of Palestine. In 2019, Huckabee said that he personally believed Israel had the right to annex parts of the West Bank. And of course, in 2008, he did say that there's no such thing as a Palestinian. It's just absolutely crazy in every sense of the word. So I think that's going to be a dangerous choice. It's hard to compare what a Harris administration would be doing right now. It's quite possible a Harris administration would also be picking people that are pro-Zionist, pro-settler, because we have been seeing a year-long preview of how the Biden-Harris administration handled the genocide in Gaza by only supplying more weapons and by setting these deadlines, as they call them, for Israel to allow more aid in, or to open more borders, or to allow certain camps to exist, or to allow various aid groups to come in, and then, those deadlines pass and nothing changes because there are no consequences. And because the deadline passed, there are no consequences. So it's very weird. Next, we have Tulsi Gabbard. She is an ex-Democrat turned MAGA ally. Would be heading the intelligence community because she would be the director of national intelligence. She could oversee 18 agencies, including the CIA and the FBI, a combined $76 billion budget. Democrats have lambasted her nomination. She has stated, or actually Trump has stated, that we will clean out all the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them. Of course, Gabbard was born in American Samoa. Her mother served on the Hawaii State Board of Education. Her father's a Democratic Hawaii State Senator. She rose to prominence. She was in the Hawaii State Legislature in the early 2000s, 2002. Elected to the House at 21. She later enlisted in the Hawaii Army National Guard, stepped down from public office to deploy in the Iraq War, serving in a field medical unit on a 12-month tour. After completing officer candidate school, Gabbard volunteered to deploy to Kuwait in 2009. She worked as a military police platoon leader and a trainer of the Kuwait National Guard's counterterrorism unit. It's all, it's great that she did that, but it's really not enough to lead the CIA, the FBI, these major organizations. This is once again kind of it's not just even about experience. It's the fact that she's a little unhinged and a little crazy. Because she has defied her party in multiple ways. She voted present during Trump's 2019 impeachment. She also sided with Republicans on bills that would place extreme vetting measures on Iraqi and Syrian refugees, which would be, racist, and also setting strange standards to make it harder for refugees to come to America when America originally was that. It was the promise of the American dream. It was a place where you could flee in a refugee state. You could flee and seek asylum in the United States and be safe here and build a better life for yourself and your family in the land of opportunity. And it's interesting that there's so many people of various nationalities, whether it's Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or even Gabbard herself, of, hey, I got into this country like this, but I'm going to close the door on you. You don't get the rights that I got when I came to this country seeking freedom and all these various things, right? So, other things that make Gabbard a little unhinged is that she opposed the military intervention to overthrow Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in the country's civil war. She wanted to prohibit the use of U.S. funds to support opposition groups in 2015. So, she also went on what she called a fact-finding mission in Syria to meet with people impacted by the civil war. So, she secretly met with Assad, Russia and Iran-backed leader, who has been accused of killing thousands and using chemical weapons against civilians. The Honolulu Civil Beat reported that she met with him twice. She told CNN in 2019 she had no regrets about the meeting, which drew bipartisan condemnation. She also said that Assad is not the enemy of the United States because Syria does not pose a direct threat to the United States. She criticized Trump for a 2017 strike he authorized on Syria, calling it dangerous, rash, and unconstitutional. She also has a failed presidential campaign from 2020. She was one of the final candidates to bow out and endorse President Biden, which is unusual. She left the Democratic Party because she believes they are under a complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers driven by cowardly wokeness. She accused the party of dividing the country by radicalizing every issue and stroking anti-white racism. Since then, she's found a haven in conservative media. She appears frequently on Fox News. It all speaks for itself. Now, the next one. Complete insanity. And we thought that Tulsi Gabbard might have been the craziest nomination of the day, but then we have Matt Gaetz, Republican of Florida. Has been nominated for Attorney General. Now, people have said that that would be the craziest news of the day. Some people have said that they have no words because it defies all logic to put someone like Matt Gaetz in this position. Now, let's remember that Matt Gaetz is under investigation. We can pull up He's resigned from Congress ahead of a House Ethics Report vote. He has been facing a sex trafficking investigation by the Justice Department, which, ironically, he would now be leading. So I assume that investigation would either be wrapping up or he would be able to just simply say, oh, we're not going to do this anymore. So he's been in multiple scandals involving that. He has denied any wrongdoing, and these sex trafficking allegations involved underage girls and have ended with no federal charges against him. And really, what I see here is birds of a feather stick together. So whether it's Trump, whether it's Gaetz, whether it's Epstein, you can go through the whole list. Birds of a feather stick together. And if Trump can be protected from prosecutions over his election fraud phone call in Georgia, or over what he's done in New York, all of the charges against him there, all the rape charges, a civilly liable rapist, as he is known, Donald Trump, seeing Matt Gaetz, who is also having issues here with the sex trafficking investigation that leads to underage girls being trafficked across state lines. It leads one to believe, there's so many allegations, it has to be true. And if the investigation is not really allowed to fully flesh itself out, then who's to say? Who's to say who's guilty, who's innocent, because he will be in charge. Very strange, very unusual. Now, next, another absolutely crazy and unhinged thing that we have here is Marco Rubio. And we're going to head over here because he has some things to say about how he's going to run things and what he thinks about Palestine.
Senator Rubio, will you call for a ceasefire?
No, I will not.
Gaza?
On the
Senator
contrary.
Rubio,
Are you filming it?
Wait,
So I want you guys to get this. I want them to destroy every element of Hamas they can get their hands on. These people are vicious animals who did horrifying crimes. And I hope you guys post that.
And what about the civilians that are being killed every day?
Hamas should stop hiding behind civilians, putting civilians in the way. Hamas knew that this was going to lead to this. So Hamas should stop building their military installations underneath hospitals.
So you don't care that 15,000 have died? You don't care about the babies that are being killed every day?
I think it's horrifying. I think it's terrible, and I think Hamas is 100% to blame. That's what I think. Make sure you post that, please.
So it was posted, and we can also refute that some of his claims are categorically wrong. So while there are more innocent people, men, women, and children that have been killed in Gaza due to the famine, due to the gunfire, the missile strikes from Israel, bombing hospitals, bombing schools, bombing churches, bombing settlements and camps that they tell people, hey, evacuate to the north. Then they bomb them, or they snipe them, shoot them in the head. Or they say, oh, go to the south towards Egypt. We'll ask Egypt to open the border. What does Egypt say? No. So they run to the south. They bomb them there. They know that these are refugee camps. They see people flocking to the beaches of Gaza, and they snipe them from their boats offshore. There is nowhere safe. It doesn't matter if you're guilty or innocent. Hamas, not Hamas. And even when they bombed hospitals, they would go inside looking for the tunnels, looking for the guns, and there's nothing there. It's all just a conspiracy. There isn't anything like this. Even when they caught the leader of Hamas, he wasn't hiding in some secret tunnel. He was in the second or third floor of a building, just hanging out, and he was starving. He hadn't eaten anything in 72 hours. After they did the autopsy, they found out he hadn't eaten in the past 72 hours. He wasn't stealing the aid truck food. If the leader was starving himself and wasn't surrounded by guns and all these other things, he was just there, starving. And I'm not defending him. I just think you have to look at the facts. You have to look at everything in the situation here. And so Rubio blames everything on Hamas. And he doesn't realize that the people that voted for Hamas largely are either adults or they're gone, or they're just dead. The most of the people that live in Gaza are people that were too young to vote for Hamas at that time. So it's not even that we could blame all of the people there for voting for Hamas. It's that there's not even enough representation there to say that the people vote for that. But what they probably do want is some sort of freedom fighter group. They do want to fight against occupation. That's what happens when you occupy someone. They do want to fight back, and they should have every right to. Because it's wrong, it's cruel to monitor the rainwater that they get, the food that they get. They can't capture rainwater. Israel has made that illegal. So they can't catch rainwater. There's no food. What aid trucks they're letting in, it's not enough. There's famine. There's death. The IDF goes around. There's proof that they have been sniping children. Even in the hospitals, that they've shot women who are pregnant as they are going into the hospital. It's absolutely insane. And we have another genocidal maniac, Marco Rubio, who will be running the Secretary of State. And it's important to give this one more little detail that we should observe here, is that Marco Rubio, U.S. Senator, Republican of Florida, over $1 million received from the pro-Israel lobby AIPAC, NORPAC, U.S.-Israel PAC, Citizens Organized PAC. There we go. And that's as of October 4th of 2024. So it's important to note the people that are so pro-Israel are often receiving money. And that's not to say that I don't think that he's only saying it for the paycheck. I think he truly believes it, but it's maniacal. It's insane that we will have an entire set of cabinet picks that will be genocidal maniacs. And granted, I know there's people that want to get out and blame and say, well, if you protest voted for Trump, or if you voted for Jill Stein or a third-party candidate, or if you stayed home and didn't vote at all, and Kamala lost, you know, the Democrats would have a solution to the war on Gaza, to the genocide of Palestinians, and the illegal settlements that are currently expanding into the West Bank, whether we like it or not, right? So people would say, oh, well, this is what you get. You didn't vote for us, too bad. But it was going to be this way either way. With Trump, it may be more accelerated with this particular group of people that he's nominating, if these people get through. And they probably will. Probably be quite easy with a Republican-led Senate and a slight majority in the House as well. I mean, and of course, Trump being president, you know, you have a Republican stronghold here that will be tough to argue with. But there's no evidence that it was going to go the other way. Kamala was speaking that she would gladly send more weapons. She was extremely pro-Israel, that her policies would not differ from Biden's. And part of that is the respect that the VP has to show to their president. You're part of the team. You can't really, she can't really break off and say something. But I think there should have been a point where she said, listen, I've loved and believe in Joe Biden, and I've agreed with his policies and I've gone along with them, but when I'm president, these are some of my policies that are going to differ. Not that I think what we did there was wrong, but I think when I'm the one leading the ship, I want to actually make sure that the Palestinians have a two-state solution, that they are free from oppression, and that the hostages are rescued, you know, whatever ones are left, that they are sent back to their homes, that the people that are Palestinians are illegally imprisoned with trumped-up charges or no charges at all, just being imprisoned for no reason, are allowed to go back home to their families. And we want to work out some sort of solution where there is peace and there is equality. She could have done something like that and probably sweepingly won the election. That would instantly get you the Arab, the Muslim vote, the young people, especially the ones protesting on college campuses all over the United States. A lot of young people were de-incentivized by Kamala's speech when she said, I'm speaking, while people were telling her to stop dropping bombs on children. So that's all I have for now, but there are plenty of nominations yet to be announced, and of course there are people here that you could dive even deeper into, that they are all cronies, but these are the ones that I found particularly egregious, and I think it's going to be a wild 4 years. So once again, support independent journalism and media. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you on the next one.